and welcome to Literary Hype Podcast. I am Stephanie, your Literary Hype Woman, and today's author conversation is a really fun one because this author is getting a lot of buzz right now for one of their books appearing in the show Heartstopper. So it's really brought their older book to the limelight, but now they're back with a brand new book that is their debut as a solo author, and that is Amal El-Mohtar, and the book is The River Has Roots. It is a very skinny book, and it's got 2 little short stories in here. I got the chance to talk to Amal while she was in Chicago for C2E2, and we took a little time to talk about this book and kind of a lot of other things. We went off on a lot of different topics, so brace yourselves. Welcome to Literary Hype. It's so exciting to have you on to talk about your brand new book, The River Has Roots.
Thank you so much.
So before we get into the book, I saw something on your Instagram and I have to bring it up. And it's this brand new shirt you just got. Because you got it in my town of St. Louis.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize you're from St. Louis.
Yes.
That's delightful.
I was going to go to your event, but I was out of town and I was like, oh, I'll make my husband go. And then they were announced here and I was like, I'll just see her at C2E2 and we'll schedule an interview and it'll be way more fun.
This is an incredible. Yes, agreed on all accounts.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about the shirt for anybody who hasn't seen it and what it means to you.
Absolutely. Hilariously, I was literally wearing it earlier today. It says Literacy and Justice for All, and I got it from Left Bank Books, which I adore. This is a bookstore that I became aware of before I visited St. Louis for the first time because they do so much really passionate community advocacy on so many different levels. They have been, about Black Lives Mattering. They have been about Palestine. They have been about all these causes that are very important to me. They've been very queer focused. And I just when I finally got to visit them on this most recent trip, I was like, I want your merch. And I was like, this is great. I would like to have this shirt, please. And it exists in T-shirt form, but my dear friend who I was also visiting in St. Louis is very crafty, and I like everything to be tank tops as much as possible. And so she cut the sleeves off for me, and now I have this cool muscle tank that says Literacy and Justice for All, and makes me feel very powerful and threatening to people who don't agree with me, which I feel is how I should carry myself in the world, generally.
That's not a bad stance.
Yes.
But also it's kind of interesting that you're Canadian and you love tank tops. Like that sometimes that does not compute. You think of Canada as being really cold.
I run hot, first of all, but it's true. I mean, I was literally wearing that shirt earlier today outside here. I don't know what the temperature is in Fahrenheit. It was like...
I think it's upper 40s, mid 50s, somewhere in there.
Yeah, it was just like a lovely sunny day. I just sun's out, guns out, I guess. Just a thing that I like. But in general, this is a recent phenomenon for me, just embracing the tank top life, because I have recently become a gym bro. And I just, in addition to being very warm all the time, I just like to have my increasingly big shoulders released from the confines of other clothes that don't fit me anymore. So tank tops are just very forgiving on that front.
When I was a rower, we wore lots of tank tops because nothing really fits when you're a weird shaped rower.
No, I mean, rowing for upper body definition, I mean, I admire rowers very much.
It's more legs
respectfully.
than arms.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Because you're kicking and
of
pushing
course.
off.
That makes a lot of sense. I have actually been in a rowing machine before.
Which is so different.
Okay. Oh, this is fascinating to me, actually.
Because so in a rowing machine, it's stationary.
You're right.
But in a boat, you have to every little bitty movement you make affects the balance of the boat.
Right.
So you have to hold
your core.
So it's 85% legs, 10% core, 5% arms.
That's
all you're doing is just holding on, tap it down and move it out.
This is great. I feel like I should take this up this summer or something.
Don't do it. It's worse. It's the worst. Your body will not like it later. I have regrets. I mean, I really liked the Nike and the scholarship, but now my body's like, what have you done?
I want to learn so much about you. So can I turn this interview around? Tell me about your history.
Division I rowing is not for the weak.
Okay. Clearly it's for the very strong.
And especially when you have a coach who is British and an Olympian.
Okay.
Yeah, he was very, very strict. Which goes into rivers.
Yeah. Oh. Immaculate segue. I respect. I'm not wearing a hat, but like chapeau bas, incredible. Yes. Speaking of rivers,
you've got this book that's called The River Has Roots.
I do. It does. Yes.
So for anybody who hasn't seen this online or in their bookstores already, tell us what it's about.
Sure. So The River Has Roots is a retelling of a 17th century ballad type called The Cruel Sister. The premise of the ballad is that there's a man who is courting two sisters. Mysteriously, he's not the villain of the ballad. And the older sister is jealous of the younger sister, so she drowns her in a river. And the drowned sister goes through a series of transformations. She becomes a swan, she becomes an instrument, and then when she becomes an instrument, she sings the song of her murder, and the older sister comes to a bad end. That's the gist of the ballad. I love murder ballads, which are ballads in which a murder occurs. I love them
that
very
was
much.
a thing?
I know, they are. And murder ballads, riddle songs, lots of ballads. I love them. This is not me being like hashtag ballads are problematic. But that particular ballad, was very itchy to me because I'm the eldest of several children. I am an older sister, and my younger sister is the dearest person in the entire world to me. I love her extremely, enormously, completely, simply, straightforwardly. Ours is not a complex relationship. I just love my sister. And I was like, I just feel like this ballad, which I love, needs some correction for me to be brought into line with my life and my feelings. So I decided to retell it in a way that made me feel better. And the result is The River Has Roots, which is mostly about two sisters who love each other, who sing to these willow trees that are on the border with fairyland, which is called Arcadia. And then some courtships happen, and shenanigans ensue.
There's lots of shenanigans.
Lots of shenanigans.
And lots of magic.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, shenanigans makes it sound like they're fun and funny. Things happen. Yeah.
Which is important to have a story. Things must happen.
Yeah, things
Whether
must
they're
happen.
good or bad. You have to have things happening.
Correct.
To have a story.
Yes.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, exactly.
But one of my friends this morning was reading through the book while we were in line because she was like, "What are you doing today?" And she's like, "What is this girl's obsession with grammar?" And I was like, I don't know how to answer that. So, but you have a really good line at the beginning of
what is magic but a change in the world?
Yes.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about the grammar magic.
Sure.
And how that word comes up so much.
Why this girl has an obsession with grammar is that for my sins, I have done way too much English majoring in my life. I stayed in school for a very long time. I did doctoral work on fairies and other supernatural creatures in Romantic era British writing. Do not I'm ABD. We'll leave it at that. So it's a deep interest of mine. Grammar, the word etymologically, is connected to the word grimoire, to magic, to attempts to work your will in the world and stuff like that. And I've also taught English, both literature and language and creative writing for many years. And the thing I always tried to teach students was to have, an appreciation and a respect for grammar, not as a dry and dusty thing that's boring to learn about, but as a way of organizing thought, and through thought, will and power in the world. So it is the idea that grammar is an organizing principle for intention, right? For the way that you want to communicate and stuff is enormously powerful. And it is basically what magic is. And if you talk about the way that people define magic in modern day occult terms or yesteryear occult terms, it is about working one's will in the world and stuff like that. And grammar is a very literal means of doing that. And the way that you shape language often shapes reality, shapes thought, shapes our perceptions of reality. So all of that felt congruent with magic. And I like the idea that, what happens to your experience of the word magic if you replace it with grammar? If you just literally nakedly say that, wow, that there was so much grammar in the air, and I liked what it did to me when I did that. And I just really enjoyed the vibe that it gave the story, but also just the intention that, a body can be organized in a grammatical way, or an ungrammatical way for that matter, or that somebody can be marred, and to have marred be like, like you've been gram-marred, just that sort of thing. All of that was very fun for me to play with, just as a writer as well. So
words literally are magic.
Words are literally magic. My thesis statement for my life and for my career. Yes, words, they're magic. I'm thinking like, what is it, magnets? How do they work? Words, how do they work and stuff, but yeah.
Well, you touched on your relationship with your sister, and as an older of multiple children as well, with younger sisters.
High five.
We're like the same person.
Absolutely.
It's fine. So this story does center on sisterhood. What does sisterhood mean to you?
I mean, sisterhood for me has genuinely defined my entire waking life, that my memories, my earliest I can't remember a time before I was an older sister. There's a really schmoopy, sincere, earnest way of answering this and a slightly wry way of answering this. And I'm going to mush them both together. The schmoopy, sincere way is just that my sister is my, to say best friend doesn't quite cut it. It's she is part of me in a way that is difficult to explain to someone who doesn't have a sibling, because her existence has defined mine in so many ways, has shaped a lot of who I am, a lot of how I think of myself in the world, and I just love her so much, and she is one of, if not the best person in the entire world. Not hyperbolically, just speaking completely objectively, my sister is the best person. So sorry to every other person, but including my husband. But yeah, I love her completely. The slightly wry way of answering it is that I have never felt more destroyed by a tweet than the one that said, "Are you the eldest daughter of immigrants, or are you normal?" And I feel that,
eldest daughter problems.
Yeah, eldest daughter problems, and I think that there's just, all the things that, you look back on and feel a little sad or annoyed by, that. I don't know if this was the case for you, but in my case, it was I couldn't sleep over at people's houses, or there was a lot of just parental fear that gets projected onto the first child, that then by every other child they're whatever. That's fine.
Matter.
We figured it out, And also this there are so many formulas that my parents would say that also feel definitional to me as a person. If you're the eldest, there's this proverb in Arabic that's الوعي الكبير بيساع الصغير, which is the big pot carries the little pot. And in any situation where I was in a conflict with my siblings, my parents would be the big pot carries the little pot. You're the big pot. You've just gotta,
rude.
Right?
I feel so attacked right now. Oh my god.
And yet, I will say, as annoying as it is to reflect on and stuff, or to look back on just how much child support and stuff the eldest usually provides and stuff too, I do feel that asking myself the question in the world of who is the big pot in this situation has actually been very helpful. If I am in a situation of conflict with someone else, or if I see a conflict between people, I find myself asking who here has the greater capacity? Who here has the capacity to extend grace or patience or calm or help and stuff? And I do think that that's a question that should be asked in most situations of conflict. Not necessarily just who's in the right, but who has capacity, who can be forgiving. And I don't know, I feel that served me well generally, and as a pillar of how I want to move through the world, it's been important, and it's indissociable from knowing that I am an eldest daughter and an older sister and stuff.
Has your sister gotten you into any particular interests?
I thought you were going to say trouble, and I was ready with an anecdote, but in terms of...
we can go there too.
No, it's all good. Honestly, so this is very nakedly autobiographical and stuff, but she and I have sung together since we were very small, and we worked our way through the Disney songbook and stuff. We memorized all of those songs, we sang them together a lot. I don't know how interested I would have been in continuing to sing without her also singing and without like hearing the way that our voices sound together and stuff, which really feels unlike any other situation of singing with a person. There is just something about voices in a family harmonizing that to me sounds different in an ineffable way that I try to put in prose in this book and stuff. But she also, of the two of us, actually went on to pursue music. She like is an actual musician. She like I think of her as the musician, and I am like a writer who plays music, and that's a distinction I'm very comfortable with. So she plays the flute and I play the harp. Her interest in music has opened has widened my apertures onto like different experiences of music. She's like classically trained. She went to conservatory and stuff like that. And I think that, yeah, that definitely has opened things up to me. In general, just like the way that she is in the world makes me delighted. She's very, I feel like when we were little, I used to be a lot more just kind of open and bubbly and gregarious. Of the two of us, I was the one who was like the more outgoing and stuff. And then I went and I lived in the UK for like 6 years, and that was like smushed out of me by a general, just a cultural shift, a very different way of being in the world. And I just remember going back to Canada afterwards and seeing my sister be this like open, bubbly, gregarious, earnest person, and just being like, yes, just like I could see something that I used to be in the way that she now was, and that felt really good. And I honestly don't know if she would have, like, if it's one of those things that when you're apart for a while, you kind of just develop in slightly different directions and stuff. So yeah, I don't know.
No, but you and your sister sing together on the audiobook for this book.
Yes.
So what was it like for you to get to do that with her for your prose?
It was wonderful. I cannot enough sing the praises of like Steve Wagner at Macmillan Audio for just being so game with all of my nonsense. Like, you know, first he was like, you know, do you have any thoughts about narrators for the audiobook? And I said, yes, I have many. Could we get someone who natively has a British accent? I would rather that someone was not putting on a British accent. So much of this book is like rooted in Dartmoor, very specifically in a place called Chagford that I lived for a little while. And I just wanted to have someone like who had a West Country accent if possible. And then I was like, could you find someone with a West Country accent who also has Middle Eastern heritage? And it's a bit of an ask. Not a lot of Middle Eastern diaspora in the West Country. But Jem Carmela, the narrator, is like, I made her up inside my head, basically. She's an incredible narrator. She's perfect. So first of all, Steve did that. Then I was like, hey, Steve, my sister and I play music. We sing together. I literally play the harp. Do you want me to do this for the audiobook and stuff? Being wildly overconfident. And Steve was like, that sounds great. Yes, let's do it. And I was like, oh, great. Now we have to do it and we have to rehearse. And it turns out that, you know, rehearsing when you're in your teens and 20s and live in the same place roughly is a lot easier than when you're in your 30/40s and one of you is a parent, not me, and has like a lot of other projects and deadlines. So finding the time to rehearse together was also already very tricky. And we also had to navigate a lot of like anxieties about like, I think a lot of people who have been working musicians for a while have this, where it's like, we used to be really good. And there's this anxiety of, we can't be as good as we used to be when we had all this time to be really focused on practicing and stuff. But can we do something good enough, basically? And so like, we were our own harshest critics, totally forgetting that when you walk into a studio, there are sound wizards who will make you sound good, basically.
With their music grammar.
Yes, genuinely. Like, I kept saying to my sister, we don't have to be album good. We're not recording an album. We're creating sounds for the brilliant sound wizards to use in making an audiobook sound really good. So just when you take the pressure off. So we sang a bunch of stuff together, we played a bunch of stuff together, and we would do a take and be like, I didn't like that take very much. And then they would play it back for us with whatever stuff they were doing to it, and it would just sound so good. And we're like, this is great, actually. I mean, maybe this is fine. So the experience, though, of singing together and playing together was so wonderful and genuinely magical. Like I always feel a little goofy, like just coming out and saying this. I don't know if you've noticed this. I'm a very earnest person. I've been saying throughout. I know, it's shocking. Nothing had felt as magical to me as the two of us singing what in the book is called the Professor's Hymn, and what in reality is called Tarwid Ishmaeli, which is this Palestinian folk song that on the album where I first heard it gets called Lover's Hymn. And it's a technique that uses there's a technique in it called mlula, where you introduce these like nonsense la sounds into words, like a kind of Pig Latin situation, to break the words up and make them unintelligible to anyone who's not a native speaker of Arabic or who's unfamiliar with the dialect and stuff. And it was a means of encoding secret messages in songs, and women specifically would sing these songs, to their imprisoned family members, to convey messages back and forth, or to tell them to expect to be like busted out of prison and stuff like that. And it was such a beautiful thing to learn about in the course of while I was revising this book, that I was like, I want explicitly as much as possible to get this into the book somehow. And when my sister and I sang it together, we both sort of just looked at each other and like had felt like something happened to us. So yeah, short answer is that it was great. It was just an incredible experience, getting to sing with my sister on the audiobook of the book that is partly dedicated to my sister is just an incredible, it's a closing of circles that one does in magic, you might say.
What? Magic?
Yeah, it's magic. I don't know, man.
A different kind of magic that is kind of hinted at and also comes up in your previous book.
Ooh.
It's time travel.
Yes.
What do you love about time travel?
Oh, so many things. I love what time travel allows us to say about memory, mostly. I can't think of time travel without thinking about how weird it is that we have memory. Like that as a species, we have recollection of things that happened, and when we think about them, we hallucinate them vividly enough that you can just like be in the same place that you were. There are so many ways of experiencing things that are like time travel, where so much of the dominant metaphor of Time War is that there's a kind of time travel in writing letters, right? Every time you write a letter by hand, it's like you are preserving a self of like a version of yourself in amber at that specific moment, and you have to imagine the person who you're sending it to in 10 days time. Like you have to kind of think, in 10 days, where will you, person who I'm writing to, be? What will you have experienced? Like if I know that a friend of mine is going through a huge thing, and I write a letter knowing that it's going to arrive after that huge thing, that I have to kind of ask and anticipate and wonder, like, who is my friend at this point in time in the future? So I guess the thing about time travel is that you can have these really mechanical, plot-based ways of thinking about it as a MacGuffin and stuff like that, which can be very fun and very satisfying. You can have it be something about a deterministic universe where like everything that has happened has to have happened. Like that's the kind of world where it's like, if there's a prophecy, you can't defy the prophecy. Like if you try to defy the prophecy, you make it happen, that sort of thing, or you can have like the multiverse thing. And right now, or at least like in the last few years, there's been this trend that I've been seeing that I really I feel very moved by, that I think of as like it's like a Spotify day list tag in my head that's like queer millennial multiversal angst sort of thing, where there have been a number of books where there's a kind of like, who would I have been if question. And I'm thinking here of like, there's a book by Amy Potwatka called Self-Portrait with Nothing, I think is the title of the book, which is deeply moving. Emmett North's In Universes is another one where it's just like, these are books that are like, I am this person now, I am approaching middle age. And there are all these points in my past where I'm like, if I had done this thing differently, who would I be? Or in this other universe, who would I be? And it feels so specific to the world that is collapsing around us in so many ways, and to the kind of pressures that determine who we are. And I feel this specifically like with queer people more, where a lot of people talk about like queer teenagehood, or like, what is it, a queer adolescence, or a queer second adolescence and stuff. If someone like transitions in adulthood, or if someone who has like previously, been bisexual in one way up until a certain point, and then is like, I think it's kind of time to explore this other side of me and stuff. There's just like, there's so much about that involves looking back at the past and wondering, and bringing questions to like, who would I have been if? Who could I have been if? And I just find that really moving. So when I think about time travel as a thing that we interrogate or like put in fiction, I think of us kind of, certainly for myself anyway, I think of those questions. I think of like that, but I also think of it as a relationship to history, and like, what is history but a collective memory ultimately? And the idea that everything that currently has some clear antecedent, when I come back to queerness as well, where I feel like we're always rediscovering, huge scare quotes, queer people in the past, like artists, scientists, inventors, whatever, and just being like, oh yeah, so-and-so, lived with their close friend of the same sex for their whole life, and they were very devoted to each other. That was it, though. All of that sort of stuff, where there are lots of things that we can't know for sure, but there is always like our vision of history is so determined by our present. It's like the present is always curating versions of the past, and to change that curation feels like changing the past. But recognizing the past for more of what it was is a kind of like enacting that time travel-y change, that allows more connections to flourish in the present, with like people being like, it's not weird that I'm like this. This is actually there is so much precedent, and I always think of like Emily Barrett Browning, I think, like writing this line where she was like, I look around me for grandmothers and find none. And what she was talking about specifically was like women writers. And she's writing in the 19th century. She's like, with the benefit of a lot of scholarship, know a lot of writers who were writing before her and after her that she didn't necessarily have connection with. And that also like is something that I see reiterated time and time again, of like people not knowing that someone else was doing the thing that they are doing. And when they learn, they feel the simultaneous like joy of recognition and also pang of loss that, you didn't have that knowledge earlier.
So How You Lose the Time War is about to come out again in a special edition.
Yes.
And it's really popping off ever since that appearance in Heartstopper. So what's it like for you to see this book that's been around for a while get a new life?
Oh my gosh, it's incredible. It's really, really wonderful. I mean, there's Heartstoppers, was the most recent thing, but obviously like with the book having had its like Biglis Dickolas Wolfwood moment in 2023 was life-changing for me. And just like the waves and waves of people who were coming to the book fresh in 2023, like 4 years after it had come out, it's just wonderful. Getting to see the new cover is also very, very exciting. I feel like Greg Stadnick's cover, like with the two birds on it, has been tremendous, and like it's been such a delight to see them be iconic and stuff in this way. Getting to see letters on this new cover that is delightful, and that I wish I could remember the designer's name. I literally saw it recently in my email. I trust you to put it in show notes and things, so I want to give credit where it is due. But it looks so beautiful, and it looks like it's a different expression, like, and just getting to think about the people who might come to the book because of this like new packaging, this new cover, at the same time as thinking about all the people who desperately wanted a hardcover after the hardcovers were just like gone. Like the hardcovers, I think there were like 10,000 copies of them that were first made. I think that's right, in 2019, and then they were just gone. There were no more, and people would be like, "Can we have hardcovers, please?" And I'd be like, "I wish I could give them to you. I simply cannot. So now that exists for people who have like, you know, a treasured copy that is falling apart and that they can have like a solid thing that lives on the bookshelf in a different way is really, really exciting to me. So I'm thrilled by that.
Last question we always ask, because this is Literary Hype, what books are you hyped about?
Okay, my favorite book that I've read in the last like several months is Metal from Heaven by August Clark. It's phenomenal. It's so great. I think I described it as something like if Disco Elysium and Chapel Roan did something together. I don't know if anyone knows Disco Elysium. It's an incredible video game that I love. But Metal from Heaven is about labor and queerness. It's a very anarchic text. If you like Time War, I would be shocked if you didn't love Metal from Heaven. It pulls off a narration trick that is masterful to me, and it's just gorgeously, gorgeously written. I love everything that author has written. And they've written under like a bunch of different names, but like Metal from Heaven, magnificent. The Practice, the Horizon, and the Chain by Sophia Samatar is also something I deeply, deeply love that I read recently. The Saint of Bright Doors by Vajra Chandrasekhara, all superb. That's kind of where my heart lives lately. But yeah, so I could just keep going. I love books so much. I do have to stop.
I mean, we do have things to do.
We do have things to do, I guess.
I'm trying to get you to your dinner on time.
That's true. Get me to the dinner on time. That's very kind of you. But yes, all of those books I deeply love.
Well, thanks so much for hanging out with Literary Hype to talk all about The River Has Roots.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
Thanks again to Amal for taking time out of her C2E2 schedule to talk all about The River Has Roots, as well as This Is How You Lose the Time War. If you'd like to get your hands on either of these books, the links to do so are down in the show notes for you, as well as where to find her on social media. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the Literary Hype YouTube channel. Click that little bell next to the subscribe button so you get notifications whenever I post a new video, and like this video, of course. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.